My name is Scott Abel, and I'll be the host of the show today. We'll be having a chat and learning some things from Jason Kaufman, who's going to talk to us a little bit about practical applications of AI and how to cultivate AI intuition. All right, without further ado, let's jump into the call, and I'll introduce you to our guest presenter today, Jason Kaufman. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here.
Hey, look, you're coming in loud and clear, and we can see you. Can you hear me well?
I can. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your connection to today's topic before we start the show.
Sure, absolutely. Jason Kaufman, I'm the president of Irrevo. I've been in the content management and knowledge management space for a couple of decades. Throughout those years, I've seen a lot of changes and advancements in tools and technology. And of course, this is a topic I'm really excited about. I see AI as an opportunity for us to really revolutionize the way we do work. So I'm really excited to share that with you, and excited to get started.
Awesome. Before we do, one more question for you. What are you going to be talking about at LavaCon, and what else do you think about the conference, or is it your first time? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, I've actually had the pleasure of presenting at LavaCon conferences a number of times over the years. Let's see, in San Diego here in October, I'll be hosting a pre-conference session, a work group, where we'll actually be diving into a lot of the topics we're going to cover today, just a lot more in depth. So one of the things I'm really excited about is showing people how to leverage some of these tools and the technologies and the functions, and we're going to be diving deep into that. I'm also going to be hosting a breakout session to discuss similar topics around AI and content generation.
Excellent. Well, I'll be there with you. I'm going to be delivering a short lightning talk at the beginning of the conference, talking about the value of communication and how we know that actually this product information that we all invest time creating is valuable. And I'll also be participating in the closing talk on the future of content, which I think will be super exciting, especially since it dovetails into what you're going to talk about today. And speaking of what you're going to talk about today, the audience has been really responsive. We've got nearly 100 responses to the poll, which is, are you using AI tools to help you craft content? And 1% say other, 44%, so almost half say not at all. Let's see, 5% of people say, yeah, they're doing it all the time. 20 or so percent say yes sometimes. And then 30% or so say, we're just getting started. Does that seem like valid statistics to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's probably representative of the population as a whole. But yeah, that's great to know, because we're going to, I'm absolutely confident I'm going to show everybody on this call at least one thing you didn't know before.
Awesome. Well, then without further ado, I am going to let you share your screen. So why don't you do that? And I'll be here in the background on mute in case you need me. Audience members, know that you can ask a question at any time, and I'll try to queue up as many as possible and ask them at appropriate times during the show, hopefully somewhere near the end of his presentation, just not to interrupt everything. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that intro. As I said, I'm really excited to dive into this. So unlocking the power of AI in content creation. Really what I want to show here is some very practical applications of the use of a lot of tools that I've discovered in my research in the last couple of years. I will be skipping back and forth between the presentation and web browsers, because we're going to actually dive into a number of these tools and show their functionality. So I'm going to try very hard not to make anyone sick. And if you are on a mobile device, I'm going to try to keep things as large as possible so you could read it on there. But if not, I understand there will be a copy of this presentation for you to access afterwards, maybe on a full screen. So without further ado, here are some of the things we're going to cover today. So just kind of an overview of this broad range of applications that are available out there. We're going to talk about the concept of AI intuition, some basics around prompting. We're not going to get real heavy into that, but I will give you the fundamentals. There are lots of resources available to you out there to actually dive more deeply into that. And prompting is what we do to actually communicate with the AI systems. We're going to look at some of the popular generative AI models, large language models, ChatGPT among them. We're going to generate some copy and actually show how we can manipulate and transform that copy within these systems. When I say copy, I mean text. So we're going to look at some ChatGPT plugins and the concept around those, expanding the functionality of the tool, generate some images based on prompts that we're actually going to use AI to generate. And we're going to take a look at Adobe's generative fill functionality that they call Firefly. And it's actually embedded into Adobe's Photoshop beta product that they have out there available now. We're going to, there's a lot we're going to pack into this, so, but I definitely want to leave time at the end for questions. We're going to look at video and image generation through AI, text to voice, and avatars, and discuss quickly some possible risks of implementing these into your workflows and processes, and then questions. So there's a lot to cover there. So quickly, there are already a broad range of applications out there. As I mentioned, text generation, text to image, image editing, avatars, and the like. This wheel is something that I found online. I tried to find the source. I could not, but it looks relatively recent. These are just a few of the areas that AI is already being implemented into. Some of these are tools and systems that have been around for a while that are now leveraging AI. And this is going to do nothing but grow. So the functionality within these tools and net new tools and new ways of using it is going to grow and exponentially, as well as the content and the content that is created within them is also going to grow as a result as the broad usage of a lot of these tools expand. So I want to talk about AI intuition. It's really just sort of honing that skill of identifying those opportunities to leverage AI tools within your work, at home, in a creative capacity, and so on. Recognizing those opportunities, say, hey, I wonder what ChatGPT would say about this. I wonder if I could use it this way. Fill in the blank. What am I missing here? This is what I'm working on. Can you help build it out? So those opportunities will arise throughout your workday. If you consider the processes and the tools you're using today, maybe some of the things you're doing manually, or the drafts that you're creating, or the copy that you're managing, and even the data surrounding that copy. There are lots of ways that you could leverage generative AI to actually explore more there. So when in doubt, I guess the bottom line is, ask the AI, right? What can you do? What is the best way for me to ask you to do this? What are the bounds with which I can work with you? So some basics about prompting. As I said, we're not going to go real deep into this, but a prompt can be very simple. And I would actually recommend, as you're starting to explore working with these systems, start very simple. Use a couple of sentences, just tell it what you want, and build on that, because it is very interactive, right? You're going to get a result. You're going to refine your prompt and further get a result and refine it. So as you do that, you're going to start building your own prompts that get you exactly what you want out of it. And don't be surprised if the first time you put something in, it's not what you want, right? It's I kind of compare it to going from keyword search to natural language search, right? And SEO. There's a bit of a learning curve there, but once you get it, you kind of get it. So one of the things that you could be doing and should be doing is kind of giving it that persona. Act as a CPA, act as an attorney, act as an expert in art or mechanics, or in technology, a certain system. So kind of frame it for that. You're a developer, an engineer. Give it a persona so that'll really frame the conversation and frame the results that it gives, because it'll start using the terms and the phrases and the verbiage that make most sense in that field. Then give it some context. Really just kind of tell it what it is, you're trying to do. I'm writing a document about content strategy. What are the key components of a solid content strategy? Let's create an outline, right? So give it that context, and then further ask it the question, what do you really want it to dive deep in? What is your request that you're actually looking for there? And this is where I've actually had a lot of fun, is specifying kind of the format that you want the results to come back in, whether it's a table format or markdown or bulleted lists. It's really interesting to see how, I'll get into that in a second here. But then there's also constraints. So as it's giving you those results and you're seeing things in there that you don't necessarily want, you can tell it, don't include that or exclude it, and you could have a long list of things you want it to exclude. But one thing I found in doing this is I've become better and better at really clarifying what it is I am looking for, what I'm trying to get out of it, and using the terms and phrases that best express what I need. And I think that's what's really unique about us as content managers, content strategists, technical writers, and the like, is I believe we're very well positioned to communicate with AI. We know how to phrase things. We know how to format things. We know what questions to ask in order to get what we want back from it. So I really believe we have a core skill set that not everybody has. So I think we're very well positioned to do this. And over time, I'll talk a little bit about this later, but as you're building your prompts, start your own prompt library if you haven't already. Start versioning them because the results will change over time. And as you build and create these new prompts, also, consider which tools you're using them in because they'll perform differently given the different tools that you use. So perhaps keep that prompt library to kind of stay in front of that. All right, so we're going to start to dive into things here. So here are some of the popular generative AI models, sort of chatbots, if you will. ChatGTP, of course, everybody knows that launched just under a couple of years ago, and it really kind of sparked a lot of creativity and was the impetus for other companies like Google and Meta and Microsoft to really sort of make public their models as well. Another is Claude, or Claude 2 by Anthropic. We're going to look at Bard by Google. There's Llama, or Llama 2 from Meta. There's Bing, or Bing Chat, and Perplexity, Perplexity AI. So these are just a few generative AI models. So one thing I encourage everybody to do is experiment with them. Now, some of them are free. Some give you advanced functionality with a paid model. Some of them are open source, so you have to access them through third parties who have implemented them. But sign up for the betas, sign up for their notifications and whatnot, so you can kind of get access to those and gain access to those as they come out, and new functionality as well. But experiment with them. And one test that I've done, and I'm going to skip out of the presentation mode here for a second. I'm just going to copy this prompt. One thing that I found to be a lot of fun is going into a number of these models. So I'll just open a few. And I'll kind of walk you through some of these. So here's ChatGTP. Here's Claude 2. And this is through Poe. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Here's Bard by Google. And here's Llama 2 by Meta. So one thing I like to do is actually put the same prompt in a number of these apps and these applications and compare the results, to see which ones are better at being creative, at formatting things, at which ones have the most recent information. Because a lot of these models were trained on information that it doesn't necessarily contain current events. So I like to kind of test them and see what comes back. And it's worth mentioning that ChatGTP on their version 3.5 and GTP4 are both trained on data that ended, I believe, September of 2021. So any current events or things after that, it may not have knowledge of unless, people have entered some information about that. So let's go ahead. Well, I guess before I do, I'll give you kind of a quick rundown. So each of these interfaces have some pretty key components, right? You can start new chats. You can enter in your prompt down below. In this case, there's a 3.5 and a 4 model for GTP. The 3.5 is faster. 3.4 is a little more current, but also has the ability to do plugins and some other functions. GTP4, from my understanding, is a paid model. It's $20 a month, but it does open up a whole host of new functionality. So we'll just look here at Claude. Similarly, you've got your box down at the bottom, Bard, enter your prompt here, Llama, enter your prompt here. So I'm going to go ahead and add this prompt. So write me a 500 to 600 word essay comparing the creative styles of Da Vinci, Rembrandt, Dali. Generate a table that compares the key elements of their artistic styles. So I'm going to let that go. I'm going to go over here as well. Paste that in. Oops, I'll close one of them. So that one won't go. And we'll paste it in here as well. Oh, I think that was Claude that I let go. So in any case. All right. So forgive the skipping around, but as those are kind of thinking, a couple of things here. So you've entered a prompt in ChatGTP here. It's given you a result. You can go and revise down at the bottom and further sort of iterate what it is you're looking for or describe what you're looking for. Or you can go back up top and hit this little symbol to edit, and you can go and revise it. Maybe you want to put in some constraints, reword it, or otherwise. But then you can save and submit, and it'll actually generate or regenerate the response there. You can also copy the response, and this is where you give feedback to ChatGTP. This is what helps train it and helps it learn what it's doing right or what it can improve on. So I encourage everybody to use that, even though it's a little extra step. But you can copy to your clipboard and paste it wherever. You could have it regenerate the response down at the bottom here. But let me go back over here because I don't think, so this is over in Bard. I'm going to enter my prompt in. And I promised Scott I wouldn't make anyone sick, so I apologize if I'm jumping around a little too much here. So we've got our response from ChatGTP. We've got our response, well, in this case, unable to reach Poe. This is something I'm going to talk about as well a little later on. It's, can you depend on these tools, right? And you can kind of compare the results between these various systems. You can even copy all of those results from the various systems into one and have it merge. You can have it tell you what are the differences between these different essays, expand on different sections of it. So is it unique? Is it plagiarism? Those are all sorts of, is it creative? Those are things that we'll probably touch on here, but those are definitely topics for larger discussion. And there are a lot of discussions already out there about, about those topics, whether it's with text, images, videos, and so on. So a little disclaimer, some of this may be, somewhat controversial, but I'm just showing what it could do. So don't, shoot the messenger here. So you've got this here from Bard. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it. You can see the table at the bottom. And I'm going to say, merge our essay with the following essay. I'm going to just paste it in. So I find myself doing this a lot. I'll paste content in and tell it to do something with it, right? That may enter into some privacy things with your company. Maybe there's sensitive information you don't want to put in there. I recommend everybody, if you don't already have one, start to create a policy on the use of AI and generative models so you can start to explain and document what it is people can use it for or shouldn't use it for, types of information they can put in or shouldn't put in, because there's a lot of great functionality here, but the last thing you want to do is open your company up to risk. So I've asked it to merge these two, and so it has. And you can read the copy. The world of art's been enriched by the creative contributions of legendary artists, each leaving an indelible mark and so on. I won't read it all out loud here, but you can see it gets into some of the different techniques that each of them used. And then we've got a table down below that talks about the technique, and it combines and tells you what each of these are. So you can see how it does a good job pulling information, distilling it different ways, and whatnot. Now, I can say translate to Chinese, if I can spell translate. So it will translate. And from what I've seen, it does a really good job. I've taken this, pasted it over into Google Translate, and had it reverse translated from Chinese back into English. It tracks pretty closely. So that's just one test to see how it does there. You can have it translate in Arabic, in French, it can do all of that. So, if that's part of your job, this may be something that you consider as a means of maybe checking the translation, having it reverse translated, and so on. You can have it rewritten. Let's go back up here and say, instead of trying to translate to Chinese, I'll just tell it to rewrite in the voice and tone of Shakespeare. So this is where it kind of gets fun, right? So lo, the realm of art doth hold within its embrace the wondrous creations. So is it creative? I mean, it's putting words together. Is it plagiarizing? This combination of words is not likely something you're going to find online. But it's definitely interesting. But you think about the application of this, I've just told it to apply the voice and tone of Shakespeare. Well, you've likely got style guidelines in the content that you work with, words to use or not use, descriptions of the voice and tone, descriptions of your audience. Those are all things that you can distill down and put into a prompt and say, apply these concepts or these guidelines to this text, and it'll do it. So if you think about voice and tone, that's a great application of this. And maybe you just use that as a check, right? So maybe part of your process, of course, is editorial, where you're applying those style guidelines. You can take something that has already been processed, put it in, and double check, just see if it finds anything different. So I know that there's a lot of this sort of translation functionality and style guideline functionality. A lot of it's been available, through other tools, online, like Acrolinks, and what am I thinking? There's a number of other tools that can apply style guidelines. But this is something that you can do also within ChatGTP. And this is just GTP3, and we haven't even dove into 4 yet. All right, so I'm going to go back to the presentation. We've done these little iterations here to kind of give you an idea how we can transform text or content. Now I want to give a little more creative here. And I'm going to have it write a poem about a woman hiking in, sorry, let me open a few more of these. We'll open Perplexity again too. All right, so please forgive all that. All right, so I'm going to go in here and create a new chat because I've already kind of given it context, right? And so I can put something in here and it may want to interpret this new prompt in the context of what the discussion is already, the direction the discussion's already been going, right? So I think before I do, I want to kind of mention something called the context window. So if you envision sort of this scrolling window that extends up, right? So as you're putting in new prompts, it's giving it more and more context for your discussion. But the older part of the discussion will eventually taper out of memory, right? So you may have to, if you've got a long sort of back and forth, may have to remind it, hey, this is what we're doing. We're writing a document about X, Y, and Z. Here was the table of contents we came up with. So kind of think of it like it's got a memory, but it's not infinite. There is a new function, hopefully this isn't too far in the weeds here, but called custom instructions, where you can go and say, hey, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's where I live. Give it some context that it's going to take into consideration with every interaction, right? So that's something else that is actually, I think it was just released last week. So I'm going to have a number of these models, and let's see here. Write a poem in the voice and tone of Robert Frost. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do it. I'm going to ask Bard to do it. Let's see here, and we'll ask. Let's see if Llama wants to cooperate. Yeah, unable to reach. Let's go down here. Have Claude do it. Okay, so we've got 3 of them working on it. We'll go over to Perplexity as well. Throw that in. So this is where when you start kind of comparing and playing with the different models, you can kind of see which ones may be more creative, which ones maybe not so much. So when I read this, and I won't read it aloud, but it looks pretty creative to me. One thing I've heard is, AI content doesn't have a soul. Well, I agree, but that's where us humans come in, right? We mold it, we shape it, we give it direction. This is just a draft, but is it moving? And to me, when I read this, I think it's pretty darn good. So one thing I've done with this is copied it again. I've copied it over to Google and searched different sections or combinations of these words, and it's not finding an exact match for any of these sentences or maybe even some of these combinations of words. So that tells me this is pretty unique. It's pretty novel. And I get excited about that. It's pretty cool. So here's ChatGPT's version of it. Let's go over to Bard. This to me looks a little less creative. The sun beat down on the field of strawberries, right? The strawberries were ripe and red. Well, so maybe I wouldn't use Bard at this point, and I'm sure it's going to improve over the upcoming months and years. But for creative work, probably not so much. Claude, the morning sun glared bright and warm. Pretty good. Bard, didn't run it there. But here's Perplexity. She walked through the fields of strawberries red. The sun beat down upon her head. Okay. So, I mean, if I read through these, ChatGPT 3.5, in my mind, kind of wins. Because I really think if I compared that to some Robert Frost poems, it probably comes pretty close. I could even say a combination of Robert Frost and Stephen King or Stephen Hawking. You can start to blend those voices together and see what it comes up with. So just a little time check here. I think we're doing pretty good. So those are some sort of chatbot, popular generative AI models, right? Like I said, play with each of those, enter in different things and see how they respond. So I want to talk a little bit about plugins. So I'm just going to open GTP4. You can see this drop down here. So plugins are just that. They're external systems like web browsers or databases that kind of help build out the large language model capabilities, right? So the AI capabilities. WebPilot is one that I use quite a bit for searching the web. Wolfram Alpha, you may be familiar with, is essentially kind of the Wikipedia of mathematics. So if you've got maybe kids or maybe you're in a calculus class, I've used it recently as well. It'll give you the answer. 90% of the time it's the right answer, 10% not so much. But what's really cool about it is you could ask it to break down the logic behind it and walk you through step by step. So just with anything, if you get stuck, it can kind of tell you, kind of get you out of that jam. A lot of developers and whatnot use that as well. They'll paste their code in, say, I don't know why this is erroring out. What am I missing here? Or here's the error message in this tool. So I'm going to look at photorealistic because this is something that is definitely on topic here. So photorealistic is a plugin within ChatGPT 4, and I'll kind of show you the bottom here. This is where you get to the plugin store. You scroll down, and this is all of the current plugins that are available to go into ChatGPT 4. You can search for different types, styles, all that sort of thing. You can see 104 here, what there are 8, so approximately 800 today. I'll guarantee you it's going to more than double within a couple of months. There's that kind of growth. I think there's one thing I wanted to mention as well. I showed that wheel that has all of those tools and all that functionality, and I'm showing all of these plugins and all these different models that you could use. It's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to feel like you're going to be left behind. But one thing I'd recommend is just look at what you do. Look at the job function you do or where your interests are. Research the tools that most closely match that and focus in those areas and build in those areas because nobody's going to be able to keep up with this. It's like in 1998, trying to know and understand all of the web pages that are going to be out there. You just can't. So just focus on what you need and what's going to help you the most and where your interests are, and you won't be left behind. So with that said, I am going to use, what did I say, photorealistic. And I just noticed this, you can select more than one. And so what ChatGPT is going to do is it's going to, based on the context of what your prompt is, it's going to determine which of those plugins make the most sense for giving you the result that you want. So I think you can enable quite a few of them, and it'll kind of pick and choose. So in this case, photorealistic. So what I'm going to do is ask it, generate 3 image prompts that describe a woman walking through a field of strawberries on a hot summer day. Create 1 prompt in each of these 3 styles, Da Vinci, Rembrandt, and Dali. So I'm asking it to create a prompt that we're going to put into some of these image generators. So, and, I can go to Bard, Claude. Let's go ahead and go over here to Perplexity. And I'll paste the same prompt in and close a few of these. So when I look back over here at ChatGPT, because I'm using this plugin, it's given me some very detailed description of the images that can be created. So I'm going to go over here as well. So we're going to start looking at the text to image. So we're going to take the output of that, and we're going to put them in Midjourney, Stability, DALL-E 2, Adobe Firefly, maybe even Runway. Just to kind of give you an idea of how each of these systems kind of interpret requests for the creation of images. So here's a prompt that I use. Here's a real simple one, right? Show me a boat cruising upriver on the Amazon. But here's a detailed one that I generated that even goes so far as, which type of camera took the photo, right? The ISO sensitivity. These are things that if you're not a very skilled photographer, you would have no idea about. But you can have AI generate that for you, and you can tweak and adjust it, tell it what you want, tell it, even the emotion that you want it to, sort of speak to. So here's the result when I created in Midjourney. So I'm going to start to open Midjourney, Stability, DALL-E, Firefly, and Runway. Lucky I've got some bandwidth. So I'm going to take, I don't know, which one should we do? I wish we could do a quick poll. Let's just do Da Vinci. And I'm going to first go to Midjourney. Now, I access Midjourney through Discord. If you're not on Discord, I'm new to it even within the past 10 months. So I'm finding it a great tool and application. But this is how I access Midjourney to create images. And you can see I've been doing this quite a bit. just in preparation even for this webinar. So there's Midjourney, there's Dream Studio by Stability AI, there's DALL-E by OpenAI, they're the same ones that do ChatGPT. There's Firefly by Adobe, and I just learned this morning that you can actually generate images, text to image through Runway as well. So there's no shortage of these tools out there, and they each are very strong in different ways. But it's a lot of fun to kind of compare the results. So Midjourney is probably my favorite at this point, and Firefly. But so you can see down here at the bottom, I'm just going to put a / and this will show you the various sort of commands or functions that it can perform. The most commonly used one is just imagine. We're going to say imagine, we're going to put in our prompt, and it's going to generate an image based on that. There's blend, which is actually a lot of fun. You can collect maybe 4 or 5, I think actually up to maybe 6 images, maybe of a person or a scene or, photos that you've got, and ask it to blend it all into one. And so you get some pretty interesting results. Just a quick side note, I pulled a prank on one of my friends. This is very personal, I guess, but I pulled a prank on one of my friends. I had 3 pictures of him, combined it all into one, and it kind of looked like him, but kind of didn't. So I asked him if he had a brother, and he kind of freaked out a little bit because it was that spot on. So a lot of fun with that. So with the imagine prompt here, I'm going to go ahead and paste it in, and I'm going to get it working. So what it's going to do is I'm basically in a queue here, but it's going to start generating that. You can see what I did previously here. It's going to generate 4 results. And what you can do is then say, hey, I want to see V is for variations. I want to see variations of image 1 or variations of image 4. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrant there. And the U is for upscale. So let's say I found the one I want it now to upscale and render a more pixel-rich image. Upscale 2, 3, and 4, or you could have it regenerate. So here's what it just generated based on our prompt. Woman gracefully walking through a vast field of ripe strawberries in the style of Rembrandt. And so I'm sure if you pull up some, if you're familiar with Rembrandt, this may resonate, or you pull up some other images of his work, should have some elements of that, likely the colors, the hue, the style, sometimes the dress, right, might be period. So let's say we want variations on, let's say the second one. So we'll just have it work on that a little bit. So I'm going to go over to Firefly. I'm going to put the same prompt in, and I'm going to have it work on one too. You can see over here there's some different functions. It's automatically selected art, maybe digital art, and so on, color tone. So this is a lot different. Is this more in line with Da Vinci? I might have said Rembrandt on the other one. Yeah, Da Vinci. I was not an art major, but nevertheless, that looks pretty cool. And then if I go over to Runway, which I don't know that I've had a lot of success with, let's go to DALL-E, paste the same prompt in, and get it thinking. Okay, so while those are working, we're now back over here on Midjourney through Discord, and here's our upscaled image. So is this, copyright protected? Is this unique? Is it novel? Is it compelling? I think it's pretty good. And there are a lot of images out there. If you can scroll through the Discord on some of these, you can see what people are creating and the prompts they're using and the type of creative things that are coming out of it. It's really pretty cool. So I'm going to save this image. And actually, you know what? Be nice to get one. Let's use this one. Sorry, let's find a better one. let's use this one I generated earlier. Just because I think it'll be a lot better to kind of, because you can see her face and her hands, kind of demonstrate some things there. So that's text to image, using a number of these modern, applications that are out there. And again, experiment with it, try different things, compare them, see what you like. And again, use the AI to help generate prompts until maybe you're, generating prompts of your own. And it's not limited to, photo quality style. I mean, you could do cartoons or anime or origami. There's really, the sky's kind of the limit there. So next I want to look at sort of modifying those images. I use Adobe Photoshop. They've recently released the generative fill in their beta version. I hadn't used Photoshop in a number of years, but I've fallen back in love with it again. It's such a cool tool, and this is such a great feature. It's actually powered by Firefly, which was one of those online apps. So if you don't have access to Photoshop, you can go into Firefly and do most of what you can do with generative fill in Photoshop, but you do have some more flexibility and features, of course, in Photoshop. So you can create, modify, and refine images using simple text prompts, add, extend, or remove content, and you have control over the new layers. So you can see here, my original text to image was just a boat cruising up the Amazon. I went into Photoshop, got us a little crocodile in there, waterfall, and a palm tree with a rock down there. And we'll jump into creating some of that now. All right, so I'm just going to go and open the photo. So this is within Photoshop Beta, and I realize not everybody may have it, but just so you know what the functionality is, so you can now take and crop and just expand the image out. And you can see down here at the bottom, there's generate. You can say, hey, I want a mountain range with a sunset. You can put all kinds of text in there. But if you don't put anything, you just hit generate, it's going to start to render based on what's already available here, the colors, the sky, the field, and it's going to complete this picture, which blew my mind when I first saw it. So there it is. So consider, photographs you may have where you just want to kind of change the aspect ratio. You want to build it out. It'll fill in the blank. You can have buildings in the background. It'll create buildings. The other thing here is you can select an area. And maybe kind of leave her out. Not sure how this is going to go. Kind of sloppy, but I can put in, sorry, let's see here. Generative fill, I can say snow-capped mountains. Okay, so let's just see what it generates. So you can select portions of the image and have it generate, based on your text prompt. One thing I haven't done is gotten really fancy with what I put in the generative fill here, kind of building out larger prompts. But you can see here, it gives you 3 options. This is the first that it generated. This is the second. And this is the third option. And you can have it regenerate if you don't like any of those. Kind of like this first one here. So let's say, and this is kind of the limit of my own creativity, I'd say. You could put in here colorful balloons. And so it'll generate some balloons. And you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it'll misinterpret what you're after. And that's something I compare to hallucinations, right? So here's the first option, second option, third option. I kind of like the third. I'm going to go ahead here and just put in, we want her holding them, so we're going to put in a string. And just a quick check on time here. Looks like we've got about 12 minutes.
Yep, and we have tons of questions, by the way, so if we can jump to those in a few seconds, that'd probably be a great one for the audience.
There we go.
Thank
All
you,
right, so no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and export this as a PNG. I do want to show, so we've just added and modified this image here. So this is very much comparable to what we do in text, right? It's iterative with text copying. So now I'm going to go into image generation. So I'm going into Runway. It's another tool you can do. You can use text to video. I'm going to do image to video, and I'm going to upload our image that we just created to have it generate. So it's going to take a little bit of time. So while it does that, I'm going to talk a little bit about text to voice and avatars. So I actually create my Everything AI newsletter using Everything AI, right? So I have the copy created. I had these avatars created from Midjourney. They're completely unique. The voice, all of it is generated. All I do is really compile it. So that's why it's called Everything AI. But please, if you're interested, follow on TikTok and YouTube and so on. But I use HeyGen to actually go and create the avatars and the voice. I use ChatGPT to create the text that they use. And also while that other thing's generating there, the video, quickly talk about some of the risks. So there's something called prompt drift. I mentioned over time as these models evolve, it may interpret our prompts differently. So we need to version those, change those. Reliability, as you saw in our demo here, some of those tools just didn't work for us. So if you're on a deadline, that could hurt. AI hallucinations. So it misinterpreting what you're looking for or just providing some information that may be inaccurate. Maybe it's just putting words together wrong. All the more important for us to verify what's coming out of there. And bias and fairness. So these are based on data. Sometimes data contains biases. So this can actually perpetuate some of those and even amplify those. So this is something that you should definitely pay attention to as you're creating. So we'll go back over here. Here's our video. It's only 4 seconds long. I believe the more you pay, the higher quality and the longer videos you can make, but I'll just go ahead and play it. So she's walking through a field with balloons. And all of this was generated by AI within 45 minutes. So thank you for that. I'm open to your questions, and I hope you guys have all enjoyed and found out something new today.
Let's take a few of the questions now. We've only got a few minutes, so let's see how many we can answer in rapid fire. Lori Marshall of Vertex says, who do you think owns the output generated by an AI system?
Now, this is all just personal, my personal opinion here. A lot of this is evolving. The prompt creator, honestly, unless you're able to find that it is, directly attributable to somebody else, you created it. Now, the other part of that may be, what rights does OpenAI or these other systems have to that content because it was created on those systems? Also up for debate. Read the terms and conditions.
That's it. Read the terms and conditions. I read some this morning and I read some yesterday about Zoom for Zoom meetings, and Zoom owns all the information that you talk about on your Zoom calls. Probably something people want to know. All right, here's another comment. When translating from English to Arabic, GPT does not perform well as it often translates literally, resulting in instances where the meaning does not make sense. What should we think about when we think about translation, do you think?
Try a lot of different models, try the different models, reverse engineer them, to have it reverse translate to see how it does. If you're a native speaker in that language, edit it, revise it. And if you find that it's just not working well and there are other tools and systems that do a better job, use those. But I will say that these tools are improving every single day. They're learning more. And, if it's not working well now, try it again in a couple months.
Or try it again in 2 hours.
Right?
Because they really are changing all the time. In fact, Michelle Marks from BMC Software wanted to ask a question that I'm pretty sure the answer is it depends. Can you restrict the response to come from a specific source such as your documentation website?
Yes, you can. So one of the web pilot was one, but also you should have access to Bing Chat. So you go into Bing Chat in pretty much any Edge browser, I believe now, and you can ask a question and put your URL or domain in, and have it filter its responses based on that. But in ChatGTP, you could use some of the plugins like Web Crawler, I think was one, but you can put the URLs in and say, you know, base my response on the content from these pages, summarize the content on these pages, and combine the content on these pages. You can even go further, and there are some chatbots out there that you can train on your pages, PDFs, documents, all of that, so that it can give custom results and responses to potentially your customers or internal employees.
Excellent. And we also had a question from DJ who asked, is there value in a regenerated response?
I think so. If you're not getting what you're looking for and you feel like your prompt is pretty good, you can regenerate it. And I don't do it a ton, but and just see if it comes back with something different. But usually what I'll do is I'll just adjust my prompt, maybe put in some constraints and so on.
I'm lazier. I say, try again. That sucked. And then it does it again.
Well, yeah.
All right. How about this? Can you get citations? And so I think that depends as well. What's your experience with that?
Yes. So when you're asking it to reference specific sources or web pages, for example, one way that I use it in creating my newsletter is I'll say, hey, here's a list of the 6 links that we're going to compile into our news story. Pull in quotes and direct attributions for these quotes and include them in the story. You can even say, include the resources in the MLA style bibliography at the bottom, or works cited at the bottom of your result. I even pasted all kinds of copy and asked it to apply the MLA style to that, to write a bibliography. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I have had arguments. In fact, I documented one yesterday on LinkedIn where I had a discussion with Bard, the Google chatbot, that said that it was just a language model and it wasn't able to do certain things. However, it had done all the things it just said it couldn't do 5 minutes before. And so I said, really, seriously, because you just did this. And then it said, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Yeah. And then it gave me the things that I wanted. However, when I asked them to when I asked it to validate it, it also said, oh, I'm not sure where I got that from. That's not actually what that thing is called. It's actually called this. So I think you kind of have to buyer beware kind of thing.
You do. Yeah. And it depends on the model as well, for sure.
Do you have any, Sarah wants to know, what do you mean by creating a prompt library?
Sure. So maybe something as simple as, a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet where you might list, the intent, so what you're trying to achieve with the prompt itself, so the text of the prompt, and in another column, perhaps the systems that it works most effectively in, ChatGTP or Perplexity, and also versioning of that. So as you're changing it each time, just append it with a version. You can go a lot more extreme with that, and there are other systems for tracking these kinds of things, but within Notes and things like that. But I definitely recommend it.
It's a good idea. And I think that there's even a market for this. We've got a show coming up in a couple of weeks, which will be about prompt management. And so there's a thing called a prompt management system. So I'm not sure that's the best acronym, but we definitely have tools that are going to come into play here where we can repurpose, just like we do our topics and technical documentation, we can repurpose the prompts that we have and maybe tweak them with the variable, which is the thing we're looking at for that very moment.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, thanks for sharing everything. That was a lot to share in such a short amount of time. I know you had to struggle with those systems and their incompatibility with our time schedule.
So
I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.